Good morning, PTN's Daily Show. Happy Friday morning. I apologize for the delay. Trying to go live on Facebook from my computer and on Instagram from my phone, and something's going on this week, just not happening from my computer. But here we are on my phone from Facebook. We'll get this out on the rest of the platforms later on. Happy Friday morning. My name is Alan. I'll be your host today, COO of ICE, faculty member in our Fitness Athlete Division and our Modern Management of the Older Adult Division here on Fitness Athlete Friday, the best day of the week. Speaking of Fitness Athlete, Mitch is on his way out to Vancouver with our friends at AMP Physio to teach Fitness Athlete live this weekend. Your next chance to catch that course live will be March 14th out in Fort Collins, Colorado. I'll be there, Mitch will be there, Jeff will be there. If you're looking to have somebody that looks very strong lift a very low amount of weight over their head, Jeff will be there to be that person for you. We'll also have our friend Clancy out there helping out at CrossFit Endure. That's going to be a total riot. That class is almost full, so if you're in the Colorado area, if you're kind of in that southwest west region and you're looking to get to Fitness Athlete Live, that is your chance for the year out there at CrossFit Endure in Fort Collins. Next weekend, myself, Dustin, and Christina will be up in Vancouver and Victoria Island for Modern Managing Older Adult Live. Still a couple spots for that course, especially if you are in downtown Vancouver. So head on over to the ICE website and sign up for that. Let's jump in today's topic on Fitness Athlete Friday. We're talking about training shoes. So a couple weeks ago, our friend Jason London and Megan Peach were on here, and they talked about the anatomy of the running shoe, all different types of running shoes, road shoes, trail shoes, that sort of thing. Go back and catch that episode if you did not, if you're looking for information about running shoes in specific. Today, I'm going to talk about different types of training shoes, cross-training shoes, hybrid shoes, whatever you may call them. When we're talking about being in the gym, doing resistance training, doing CrossFit, doing Olympic weightlifting, what are we looking for in a shoe? And what is going on with all these different types of little lifts in the shoes and Olympic weightlifting shoes and all different manners of heel drop? What is going on with these shoes? And the inspiration for this topic came from, I was working with somebody a couple weeks ago, a client who started to develop some anterior knee pain with running bilaterally. And once we got into the nitty-gritty, looking at her training volume, looking at what was happening in her knee, what we came to the conclusion is she had gone from a completely zero drop CrossFit style shoe, which I'll show you that here in a second, to a more traditional running shoe. She actually gone to some Hokas, which have a very high amount of cushion, very high heel drop. I believe they're 10 millimeters, which is about a half of an inch. And so she had gone from doing CrossFit style exercise and a little bit of running in essentially a flat shoe with no drop to a shoe with almost half an inch of heel lift. And we know that when we elevate the heels, we get some increased dorsiflexion, and with that comes some increased anterior knee translation. And so she had increased not only her running volume, but completely changed the style of shoe, completely changed the drop of her shoe. And once we took a little bit of her lift down, that knee pain cleared itself up. So I want to talk about that as well. So let's get into the anatomy of a CrossFit style shoe. A lot of folks are wearing these days. You see them. I was at the athletic club early this morning swimming, and I saw a bunch of folks wearing Reebok Nanos and Nike Metcons and Noble trainers, just walking around the gym, lifting weights on the rowing machine, on the assault bike, even though they aren't in a CrossFit gym doing CrossFit. They all had CrossFit style shoes on. What does that shoe look like? That shoe looks like this, and I apologize if you're listening on the podcast. You might want to switch over, catch this video on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, because it's going to be a little bit visual here. So this is a Reebok Nano. You can see it's quite flat. It's stiffer type of shoe than a running shoe. It has a couple different unique things. It's got a really solid, rigid heel. That helps really lock the shoe in when we are doing Olympic weightlifting, push press, push jerk, clean and jerk, snatch, squatting type movements. Really helps clamp that heel down to really drive through your heel for those overhead lifting and squatting type motions. The instep here has this kind of hardened, I believe it's Kevlar, and that's to help clamp onto a rope for rope climbs. And so if you have both shoes, you can clamp the rope. That's the rope clamp part of the instep there. So that's common among all these different types of shoes, is that the instep is reinforced there for rope climbs. We have a harder, grippier bottom meant to latch on to the floor, again, for things like Olympic lifts, for things like squats and push presses and kind of barbell type movements, to really lock your foot into the floor, especially if you are in a gym that has those wood runways where you line up on the wood and you lift your barbell on the wood, or your dumbbells or your kettlebells. So it has that really rigid, grippy bottom. The outsole itself and kind of the whole material is Kevlar. It's heavier duty, meant to be on the rowing machine, on the bike, climbing on a rope, jumping and landing a lot from the pull-up bar, things like double unders, and then out running as well, doing things like running. So overall, a very resilient shoe. Now let's talk about, I'll show you the Nike Metcon as well. So Nike Metcon looks very similar. Got that reinforced instep for things like rope climbs. Got that hardened Kevlar outside and that really grippy heel cup. So that's a Nike Metcon. This is a Nike Metcon Free. What's the difference here? Folks say, what should I get? Should I get Reebok? Should I get Nike? Should I get Noble? That's going to depend on your foot. If you have kind of a normal size foot, you don't wear a wide width shoe, you're going to maybe like a Nike Metcon, which runs a little bit more narrow, but feels kind of more grippy on your foot in general. It just kind of feels snug. You will like a Nike Metcon, you will like a Noble. If you are like me and you have quadruple wide width feet, you have 4E feet, you are used to wearing those all white Nike Monarchs that you find at the supermarket that your dad probably cuts the grass in. If you're like me, you will hate a Nike Metcon, you will hate a Noble. They're just too narrow. My toes won't even fit into a Metcon. I can't tell you what it feels like on my foot because my toes don't even fit into it. If you have a wider foot, you will like a Reebok Nano. You can see it's got a much wider toe box, and even here on mine you can see I'm still spilling over a little bit out on my pinky toe with how wide my feet are. So if your foot is wider, you will prefer a Reebok Nano. I think they still fit just as snug if your foot is wide enough, but much more comfortable. I can walk around all day in a Reebok Nano. When we teach Fitness Athlete Live, I wear Nanos all weekend, and they're comfortable to walk around in versus I've tried Nobles. Nobles aren't as tight as a Metcon, but they're on the tighter side, and it's definitely not a shoe that I could wear all day long. So that's your kind of your cross training shoe. These are okay to run in. We typically don't run distances longer than a 400 in CrossFit. Sometimes we'll test our mile time, we'll test our 5K, and then I'm going to be wearing kind of traditional running shoes, or even if we run 800s or something, I'll be wearing a running shoe. But when we're doing things like 400-meter run, clean and jerk rope climb, this is your shoe. It's got everything you need to do. It's okay for that 400 run. You definitely want it for the weightlifting. You definitely want it for the rope climb. If you've ever tried to climb a rope in CrossFit in your running shoe, you know that you melt the inside of your shoe and ruin your shoes literally in a rep or two. So that's why we like those cross training shoes. This is actually a Metcon Free, which is, you can see it's got a lot more give than the Nano, and it's got this single tongue. It doesn't have an extra tongue. This is Nike's Metcon Free, which is meant to be more comfortable for running. You can run in these more comfortably than the regular Metcon or the Nano or the Noble. Noble also has their own line of running shoes as well, just like Nike does. So that's your kind of typical day-to-day cross-training shoe. Overall, you can see not much drop at all in the heel, really not any lift at all. The new Metcons 5s have something called a hyperlift, which has a little bit of heel drop, heel lift built into it, but overall a very flat shoe. And so you can see, like I talked about with that patient, how going from this shoe to a Hoka, which has a lot of heel lift, could really put you up on your toes, get some anterior knee translation, and start to develop some knee pain. So what I did with her, with that patient, before we start to talk about Olympic weightlifting shoes here, is I showed her VersaLifts. A lot of you know these. VersaLifts makes two versions now. This is the version 2, which is single piece of rubber. It's a lot more grippy. It's meant to go underneath the insole of your shoe. So I'll show you here. Pull out your insole, stick the VersaLift in. It's going to fit right underneath the insole, and then you put your insole back in, and now it's in there. You don't really feel it. You get the benefit of an extra ½ inch of lift, which will help you with things like squats and wall balls and thrusters while you're working out if you have a problem with dorsiflexion. It's pretty comfortable. It doesn't make the shoe that much more comfortable, and you can still go out and hit a 400-meter run in this and not have an issue. It doesn't slide around or anything. The old one, the version 1, I like a lot, because if you look at it from the side, you see it's that same ½ inch of drop, but now it's got peelable layers here. So it's got 3 peelable layers. Each of these is about 4 millimeters of drop, or about 0.16 inches, whatever that is in imperial. And so what I did with that patient is I had her buy a pair of these and just peel one of the layers off and put that in a pair of no drop running shoes, and just slowly introduce that drop to her as she transitioned from her flat CrossFit shoe to a running shoe. Had her run a couple weeks with one layer, add another layer in after a couple more weeks, and just transitioned her slowly to that high drop Hoka that she wanted to wear, and got her knee used to the increased amount of drop over time. So that's a good way to progress somebody that maybe wants to take up running more, or is maybe only doing CrossFit or something in the winter because they can't run outside, and as they get back in the spring, instead of having them develop that anterior knee pain, have them slowly increase their drop with something like a VersaLift, take them from a no drop to a higher drop shoe in a manner that doesn't have them develop any knee pain. So that's CrossFit shoes, that's lifts, VersaLifts. Let's talk about Olympic weightlifting shoes. So I've got 2 kinds here. I've got mine, which my dog chewed for me, nice. These are Reebok Legacy Lifters. These are custom colors. You can't buy these bad boys on the website. You got to order these special. When do we use these? We use these when we are going to be standing in place and moving a barbell. These are very hard. You would not want to run any sort of distance in these. You really don't even want to walk across the gym and use the bathroom when you have these on. They're not that they are painful, they're just meant to be locked in onto an Olympic weightlifting platform, onto a wood platform. These have in them a huge heel. You can see this is 3/4 of an inch of heel lift, of heel drop, so a ton. It's basically a high heel, right? And so this helps folks who are restricted in dorsiflexion. It's super grippy if you're going to be doing a lot of heavy Olympic weightlifting. If you're going to be doing cleans and jerks and snatches, you want an Olympic weightlifting shoe. You see Olympic weightlifters pretty much only have their lifters and a pair of like walking around shoes, right? They don't have a whole bunch of shoes. They spend their time in these shoes when they're in the gym training. These are expensive. These are a couple $100s. What we don't want to see with these is that folks start to switch shoes a lot. So sometimes in CrossFit, folks learn that if they have Olympic weightlifting shoes, they can squat to full depth, and it helps them blow past any dorsiflexion restriction they may have, and then they become that person in the workout who is always... We're back. Okay. They become that person who's always changing their shoes in the middle of the workout, which we don't want, right? We don't want them to lose the intensity of a CrossFit workout because they are taking their lifters off because they've now moved from squatting to running a rowing machine, right? We'd rather see them put a VersaLift in their CrossFit shoe to help them get that depth they may need on their squat versus putting these on and needing to switch in and out of these shoes. That being said, there are workouts where you might want to wear your lifter, maybe a workout with rowing and thrusters or rowing and wall balls where you're not really going to be moving a lot and you do want that extra dorsiflexion for squat depth. Then it's okay to wear these, but otherwise reserve these just for heavy lifting. If you're like me, I'll show you my secret. I've got Versa lifts inside my lifters for even more of a heel lift, especially on my right foot because my dorsiflexion is so restricted. So you can get quite a lot of lift with these. Again, we have to just be careful. Folks don't jump right to these and start to develop some anterior knee pain from suddenly going from never squatting to full depth to squatting full depth, and with that increased dorsiflexion and anterior knee translation that comes with it. So that's an Olympic weightlifting shoe. This is the Reebok. Noble has their own. These are Nike Romaleos, same amount of lift. It looks like they might have less of a drop, but it's the same amount of drop. These are also 3/4 of an inch. So Nike has some. Adidas has some power lifts. Those are less of a drop. I want to say those are 1/2 an inch. So those are more like having just a pair of Versa lifts in your shoes, much less of a drop. And then Noble has a pair as well that's similar to the Nikes and the Reebok. When it comes down to these, again, Nike you can see is a little bit more narrow compared to the Reebok. So again, if you trend towards a wider foot, you're going to like a Reebok much better than a Nike or a Noble. And if you want a little bit less of a drop, you don't need as much help from the dorsiflexion side of things, then you may like the Adidas Powerlift. Reebok also makes a CrossFit style or a CrossFit branded lifter that has less of a drop as well. So a lot of different options out there, just like the training shoes with your Olympic weightlifting shoes. The main thing is if somebody is going from a no drop shoe, a flat shoe, if there's somebody that's wearing those Vivo barefoots or any of that style of shoe and they are accustomed to having a completely flat foot, that we don't ramp up their lift too much and have them encounter that possible knee pain. So progress them, use the Versa lift, the peelable layers to progress them, especially if they're switching as well from a flat shoe to a running shoe that's got a much higher drop, and they're going to be increasing their running volume a lot. Progress that drop accordingly and make sure that they do so in a pain-free way. So that's shoes. We talked about on Monday, we talked about all the other kind of gear that comes with exercising in the gym and CrossFit and Olympic weightlifting, belts, grips, wraps, all that sort of thing. So go back and check out Monday's episode as well if you haven't, to kind of catch the upper body side of things with gear. So I hope that helps. We get that question a lot. What shoe, especially from those who go through fitness athlete and maybe they start CrossFit or they start powerlifting or Olympic weightlifting, we often get asked what shoe is the shoe for me. It's going to depend on how wide your foot is, and it's going to depend on your training goal. If you're a CrossFitter and you don't care too much about spending any dedicated extra time to Olympic weightlifting, then you can get away with just a CrossFit style shoe and maybe a pair of Versa lifts, versus if you're going to be doing CrossFit but also spending some dedicated time to weightlifting, you may want both a pair of hybrid cross training shoes and a pair of Olympic weightlifting shoes. You'll see folks who have been doing CrossFit for a long time often have a bag of a whole bunch of different gear, wraps, grips, chains, yo-yos, Olympic weightlifting shoes, CrossFit shoes, running shoes, walk-around shoes, dress shoes. You'll see folks have quite a lot of stuff in their gym bag the longer they've been doing this, with all the different gear that's on board. So that's all I've got for you today. Hope you have a great Friday. Speaking of CrossFit shoes, Olympic weightlifting, squatting, I'm going to be doing a competition tomorrow morning, so I'm out of here to go do some active recovery and some meal prep for that competition. Hope you have a great weekend. If you're going to be up in Vancouver with Mitch, hope you have a complete riot. That course is going to be at the Olympic Training Center in downtown Vancouver. So what an awesome place to take your Fitness Athlete Live course. Other than that, we'll see you next week. We'll see you on Monday. Jeff will be on here for Q&A Monday. If you have a burning question that you would like Jeff to answer, shoot it our way. Shoot it in a message on Facebook and Instagram, or send us an email. We'll answer it live on Monday morning. Have a great weekend. Bye, everybody.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.